that I'm going to live like a man. I'm going to work like a man. I'm going to date like a man. I'm going to live like a man. And when I say that, people would kind of take it as a funny thing. People would be like, all right, all right. And then there are a lot of women who would say, no, I'm a woman. I'm going to work like a woman and I'm going to be like a woman. And I said, no, my point is that I'm a woman who's going to live like a man. I will not take anything less. I will demand what's mine. I will expect to be treated the same as men. That's my point out of that. I'm not going to seek permission for the things I'm already owed.
This is a conversation with CJ you don't want to miss out on. Today, I bring to you the unconquerable, the unparalleled, the unforgettable queen of contracts herself, the CEO of Crush Contracts, Roma Khan. So welcome to the show, Roma. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing really, really good. I know that in the past you've talked about yourself as an attorney. So now, today, we want to jump into some issues and
That's
tackle
great.
some of the different issues that you're seeing in the legal community and in the legal
Yeah.
profession. And I just want to start it with an open question. What's on your mind?
Oh, there's so much on my mind. What do you want to talk about? There's you know, gender pay gap. There is the event coming up. We have, really great clients that we're supporting with their big projects. So what do you want to talk about?
Well, obviously, we need to talk about the event that's coming up first because I think that's really important. That's crucial.
Yeah.
So let's start there, and then let's work to some other areas that I think that are very, very important that we address in this conversation today. So tell me about the
Yeah.
event that's coming up.
Absolutely. So I want to invite everybody who's listening and watching this to Crush Contracts Academy. It's on June 21st, Friday, June 21st, 2024, in Chicago. It is the day after Legal Geek Chicago. So if you are in town or you're visiting for Legal Geek, then you can attend two events in 1 week. And then you can stay for the weekend and enjoy Chicago in all its glory in the summer, because Chicago is the best city in the summer in in America. So I've always had this vision of building this Crush Contracts University, like a contracts university, has a global reach, and we can teach people how to understand contracts, how to create, organize, analyze them, as professionals, as business owners, not just as lawyers, both as lawyers and non-lawyers. You're able to read a contract, because I believe that contracts are not legal documents, they're business documents. Therefore, everyone in a business, in a company, should be able to control them, manage them, conquer them. So this is the first step to our journey, to empowering everyone to do their contracts. This is a one-day event. Our classes start at 9 a.m. We'll have a light breakfast and then a keynote speaker, and then we're going straight into school mode. It's really cool because we're bringing a lot of great experienced speakers. You saw that Netta is going to be there, Lucy Bastley will be there, and a few other very well-known, experienced lawyers, and also not lawyers, like M&A strategists and legal operations experts and leaders. So I encourage everybody who is, who loves contracts and hates contracts, to attend this event. We've kept our ticket prices very reasonable, so everybody can afford it. Legal departments or contracts departments can, sponsor or pay for their attendees. We invite everyone from both legal departments and contracts or procurement, including finance and IT, to attend this, because you will learn different aspects of contracts, whether from procurement perspective, from financial approval perspective, and also from technology perspective. When you are installing new technology or getting a new software, including a software for contracts management. So it's a very inclusive event. We're inviting people from all over the world to join. We'll have, hopefully attendees from Asia and Africa and Europe joining, and we'll make sure that the content also identifies and relates to the attendees from all parts of the world.
Wow. Sounds like a very exciting event. I will be there, and I'm
Yes, you
looking
will be
forward.
there. We can't wait to have you. Yes.
That's right. That's right. I have a lot to learn about contracts, let me tell you. So I'm excited to be there and
Yeah.
to be with everyone else. You hit on something that in your conversation about the event that I want to bring up that is pressing. It's one of the issues that is currently being addressed in the legal community, and that is the topic of lawyers versus non-lawyers in
Okay.
those titles,
Yeah.
right? And I believe that there's like two sides. There's a group of legal professionals who are like, hey, you know, the term non-lawyer needs to go away. And then there's another group that's like, actually, the term non-lawyer is relevant and it distinguishes lawyers from non-lawyers, as it pertains to with the legal community and legal profession. Can you say more about, you know, why there's a need to have the distinction between lawyers and non-lawyers?
Yeah, I'm actually quite baffled to see this even being debated. I think that there is some merit to people having an issue with it, but the issue is that it's not necessarily the term; it's the bad intention behind it. The distinction between lawyer and non-lawyer is critical to public safety and public well-being. An innocent bystander or potential client or anybody who's not a lawyer, a non-lawyer, cannot accidentally even assume that somebody who is not a lawyer, because you may reveal something to them that it will not be protected by attorney-client privilege. You may give them money that will not be protected by a trust account, and all these other items. But most importantly, confidentiality, privilege, and trust comes in when you think somebody is a licensed attorney, taking an oath, subject to the bar rules, versus somebody who is not. I understand that people in the legal profession want to be treated with respect, and absolutely, my CEO of a company is a non-lawyer, but that doesn't mean he's less than me, who I'm a general counsel. He's my boss, right? And a lot of times people look at non-lawyer as some kind of a negative thing, and that's on them, in my opinion, because either they've been exposed to some treatment, maybe they weren't invited to a party that was for lawyers, maybe they don't get a piece of the profits because it's only for lawyers, so they may have felt left out, and they got that label. But that's not the same as a title. So you can have many different titles. You can be the president of a country and not be a lawyer, and that's all fine. But it is critical to always maintain and be able to clearly say lawyer versus non-lawyer, so nobody else or a third party doesn't get confused and treats one as a lawyer. And I know that it's hard for a lot of non-lawyers to understand this, because when you become a lawyer, you go through layers and layers. It's not just the education, it's not just the bar exam. You have to go through moral character and fitness, and they will make you go through sometimes years of questioning. They will remind you daily that you cannot call yourself a lawyer until you have passed moral character and fitness and taken the oath and also paid your bar dues. So we just, as lawyers, have been just ingrained and burned and put the fear of like legal jail before we can refer to anybody accidentally as a lawyer. So we are encouraged to identify as lawyers and distinguish ourselves from non-lawyers for that reason. So there's this word, this label is there for a good reason, and it should serve a good purpose. If it's being used to discriminate, then I think the issue should be with the discrimination, not with the label. A good
Mm.
example I'll give you is when I'm an immigrant. I came to this country as a legal resident alien. The word alien is very interesting. I think it's kind of funny, but I've not taken offense to it. You have 5 years before you enter the country that you're eligible to apply for citizenship. Until then, I was a non-citizen. I yearned to become a citizen. I wanted to be a citizen. Did I feel a little left out? Yes, but that was also a fact that I was not a citizen. I couldn't vote because I was not a citizen. I can't go around and say change the label to non-citizen because it hurts my feelings, or there's an articulate way of saying it, or that we're all residents of this country and we all get the same stuff. We don't. Obviously, all residents get some rights and benefits, but then only citizens get certain rights and benefits. And I'm not a
Right.
natural born citizen, so I can never run for president, even though many of you have said that I should. So, again, I am not a natural born citizen. So again, does that hurt my feelings? I shouldn't. It's a fact. I wasn't born yet. I wish I was, but I'm really glad I was born in India and I lived in Saudi Arabia and I've had all these great experiences. So I don't take the non, and nobody should take the non to be anything less. I've heard about non-residents, non-whites, non-citizens. Like, that
Mhm.
label has no power as long as you give it any kind of a power. And two, go after the discrimination, and any bad intention behind using that label. If somebody's being called a non-lawyer and being restricted from a job, from a position that you really don't need to be a lawyer for, or it's clearly some kind of a gender-based or race-based discrimination and they're using that label, then go to the core, the issue behind that label. But the label itself is not harmful. It cannot be banned. It should be used to clearly identify if somebody's a lawyer and not a lawyer. And I brought that up in my, when I say about the event, because a lot of lawyers are counsels for companies. And sometimes, are you a contracts lawyer? Are you a contracts professional, right? There's a difference in that, because if I'm a contracts lawyer, there always is a sort of expectation that I might end up giving legal advice, right? So it's always important to clarify, am I a lawyer for, or a non-lawyer? So that's another reason why I said that. And most of the time, it's just a matter of convenience, right? A non lawyer can be a million different titles, right? A lawyer
Mhm.
is a lawyer. So
Right.
sometimes it's just a matter of convenience to just group that and to say, non lawyers. You can be a legal professional and not be a lawyer, right? You can be a lawyer and also be a paralegal. There's a lot of back and forth and overlapping, but the core of it is, if you're really identifying somebody is a licensed attorney or not, then you say lawyer, non-lawyer. So that is my
Right.
position. I only think of public policy when I stand for it. I will not support it for any discrimination. I will not support it for any intention to keep anybody out of any opportunities that they deserve. I just want to clear that that's not why I'm saying this.
No, very well said, and it makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate you stating your position on this. You leaned in with another word that I think kind of bridges us over to another item, because we're going through these different items
Yeah,
today, these issues that we're tackling. You talked about, hey, being a president, right? And so this is a year where we are seeing a lot of different candidates who are running for president, and they're stating who their VP is. And
yeah,
most recently, yes, and most recently
yeah,
today, this was in the Wall Street Journal. I thought it was very interesting
yeah,
because I see this as it bridges us to an area of talking about going into DEI and things of that nature, and we're going to get there, but we're going to take a little bridge to get there first, because I just saw this and I thought to myself, what did this term mean in context to
yeah,
the attributes of this particular VP? And
yeah,
so I'm talking specifically with the Wall Street Journal in their article with RFK Jr. naming Nicole Shanahan as his VP running mate. And it states, and I quote, Shanahan, Kennedy said, matched the list of attributes he was looking for in a running mate as someone who has worked to increase access to healthy, pesticide free food. That sounds
yeah,
great, right?
yeah,
Has an understanding of tech and AI, because we're in the world of tech and AI
yeah,
now, right?
yeah, yeah.
But this is what got me, and is athletic. And I go, what did that have to do with everything else? And
um, yeah, yeah. Like, he
yeah.
wants a fit person. Why is this person going to carry the president around physically in their arms? Is this person going to like do marathons or triathlons? Is that
Right.
what the VP's job is? Because you normally don't see the vice president do much else. So I don't know what his
But
plans are for this vice
yeah,
president.
it just made me think about a lot of different things, such as how people are marketing or and even talking about diversity and
Yeah,
diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace and in the legal profession, and it makes me wonder. So we're in this era where we are seeing DEI
yeah,
propaganda and things of that nature.
yeah,
Um, and as it relates to women, people of color, even people that are
yeah,
disabled, I'm gonna start with one particular area, and it's looking at career paths. Like, what
yeah,
is the career path now say for a woman, in tech or in legal tech, do you have to be athletic to have executive
Yeah,
executive stature,
yeah,
right? Because clearly it's an attribute, right? What does that say for people who are not athletic, right? And I'm
right,
making
right.
fun of that term, but you get what I'm saying. So, like,
Yeah, I do,
how
yeah.
does it sit with you?
Well, I mean, first of all, we've actually had a president who was in a wheelchair, and he ran so many times we had to put a term limit. He was that successful. So I think
Mhm.
being athletic or other physical attributes that you're uh, to the point where you can, if you can do your job and your brain is fine and you can give orders and you can understand what's happening, I don't think that that should be a strong bearing. I also appreciate that certain jobs require physical strength and stamina, like if you are a firefighter, if you're in the military, like I'm not saying that you know smaller person or weaker person physically can't do the job. There's always a role for everybody in there. We can all get up and do our best. But that but that's not the number one requirement, in my opinion. Especially when you think of a vice president or a corporate job or a legal job, right? I mean, we cannot be inclusive if we are now, I mean, literally physically talking about a physical trait before we hire somebody. Now, do I think that being healthy is important? Absolutely. Can companies offer and create a culture of better health? Yes. How about we start with providing better health care to women? How about we provide, better sitting areas for people? How about we provide longer breaks so they can actually go outside and get some fresh air? How about, there's so many other ways you can offer better health and improved health to your employees and staff members without expecting them to be athletic. I mean, the different definition of athletic is also, you know, subjective. I think I'm
That's
quite
right.
athletic. I work out once a month. I'm good with that. You
That's right.
so I
But
feel so great because I'm sore for 2 weeks and then I do again. So yeah, it's I think it just goes to show that no matter and there is I think there is a generational mentality as well, and
Mhm.
also the language that's used. There was a lot for the longest time an emphasis on appearance on and we can't deny it. People have done a lot of surveys on like how good looking applicants versus people who wasn't were not maybe as I think everybody's beautiful, but you know what I mean? Like if they're
Mhm.
not, if their appearance isn't as appealing, how they were treated. So there will always be a natural reaction towards looks and beauty and things like that. But we should take, affirmative actions. And when I say affirmative, I don't mean by affirmative action. I mean like
Mhm.
express actions to not fall into that, to not allow our subjective feelings about somebody's looks and body type and race to interfere in our judgment of hiring them, because what we're looking for is talent and personality and character.
Mm. Do you believe that there can be a way in which, when we label a person as a diversity hire, that it
Mm,
devalues the talent that person actually brings
yeah.
to the table, and the value that they bring to the table to the organization, because we put that term in front of the hire, not just stating that we hired them because they were the right fit, that they had the right education, that they had the right,
Yeah.
ideas, right?
Well, you don't really see people actually saying that this is a diversity hire, but
Mhm.
that's what they're saying when they say we hired our first female. We're looking for the next female this, or the first African American this, or first Latino this, right? Stop saying that.
Mhm.
Find the best talent, but don't disregard and discount someone based on their race. That's what we're really looking for. We're asking the equal opportunity to be interviewed and to be hired, right, as persons of colors. When we have these announcements that they hired someone, I often hear, especially coming from white males, that, oh, of course, that was a diversity hire. So the companies
Mm.
don't announce it that way, and then these people get upset and they say that. And I ask, like, how do you know that this was a diversity hire? How do you know this person who has multiple degrees, 10 years of
Right,
experience, more
right.
experience than you, not the right fit for the companies. Maybe your attitude and entitlement is what put them off. If you're like this right now, I can only imagine how you were in the interview. So how do
Mm,
you know that this was a diversity hire and not a meritorious hire? So it's it's very surprising to me. I think that the DEI campaigns, the way they're set up, are actually hurting people of color at the moment because of how they're sending the message. There's no depth in it, there's no soul in it. They're not doing this to actually make an improvement. They're doing this so they can look good. So the PR around about the marketing around DEI propaganda, in the last couple of years has been pretty disappointing, in my opinion, because they set the stage where they're saying we're going to change our DEI process. We're going to make it better. We're going to hire more people of color. Don't say that. That just sounds like you're trying to just hire more people of color, whether or not they're talented. Instead, turn around and say that we are going to give everybody an equal chance. We'll make sure that nobody's discriminated based on their, their race or religion or gender. Say it
mm,
that way. By saying that we're going to hire more people of color or minority just sets the stage that you're just giving handouts, right? And of course, some
mm,
people on the other side are going to look at it and say, well, what does that mean for me? I too deserve a chance. So
mm,
I think that DEI messaging right now is pretty bad. It's having, a reaction from both sides. I don't ever want to be seen as a diversity hire. I'm very qualified for the work I do. And if I ever get hired, I want to get hired for my brain and for my attitude, not for my skin color and not for my gender. Do people of certain minority classes deserve some extra help from time to time because historically we've been deprived? Yes. I'm not saying that that's not true, but I don't want to be hired based on my gender and on my race. I want to be hired based on my qualifications. And if I'm not qualified enough, then I'd like to get opportunities and resources to get qualified, right?
right.
Build that around. If your company is a very high tech company and has a very specialized job that it just so happens that all the applicants are of a certain race or gender, that doesn't mean that you have to go out of your way to hire somebody out of that who's not qualified. Hire the best person for the job. But if you recognize that somehow we did not get a single female applicant, maybe invest in that. Maybe create training programs. Maybe help female applicants then be able to apply for these jobs. Like, this is what companies can do instead of just hiring somebody because, well, we didn't see any woman applicant. We must hire a woman to make up some kind of a quota or some kind of a DEI, optic.
I see. I see. That's very interesting. When I think of a company that comes top of mind that I see has a, mindset of DEI and they have a very diverse leadership team. I think of a
Yeah.
company, Thomson Reuters, right now, and I
Yeah.
think of their big three. And the big three is their largest segment of business.
Yeah.
They have a lady by the name of Laura Clayton McDonald. I don't know her, but she is the president of their corporate division. They also have another woman that is running their accounting and tax division, and they have a person who I believe he's Indian that runs their legal and professional division. And to
Okay.
me, that's very telling
Yeah.
because when I look also across their leadership team, even at their product level, you see men and women as heads of the
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
And also, it just seems like that to me is where you have the greatest the greatest conversation because you have people that come from different backgrounds, different, ideals and mindsets, and no wonder they're able to make great products, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they are reflecting the users that are actually using their solutions who are not just
Yeah.
one ethnicity or whatnot, right? And so I think it's pretty cool when I see that, and I always want to catch a person doing something right. And so in this way I'm saying, hey, you guys are doing something right from
Yeah.
my optics, keep doing it. But I do want to jump into something that you said, and that's I want to get into support, as it relates to support for specifically, you talked about breaks, you talked about sitting rooms and things of that nature. I think there's something there as it regards to the support that let's say women have in the workplace when
Oh,
they have children, right? And they're nursing,
yeah.
right? And what great companies are doing to help be supportive and also to provide better healthcare and better benefits for women that maybe are not pregnant but have it in the plans.
Well, I love that question, and but before we move on, I also want to recognize Thomson Reuters for their effort in giving everybody an opportunity. I don't see it as them promoting people of color. I see them as giving everybody an opportunity, and clearly, those who had the best talent moved up. And this shows that people of color and different backgrounds can be very talented and can do a great job. I mean, look at the investments they've made recently. Look at the purchases they've made. I really admire that company, and I've only had good experiences with them. So it's a really good point. I'm glad you brought it up. We should always give credit where it's due. If somebody's doing a good job, we should talk about it. Or most of the times are the social media and then news media is just full of bad things or calling out people for doing bad things, which we should do as well, but should also balance it out with the good stuff. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I hope more companies follow suit and do the same thing. Now I want to talk about the topic that I'm really passionate about, and it's providing true equity and inclusion to your diversity, to the diversity of your employees. It's not just we hire a bunch of women. What are you doing to keep them in the workforce, right? So you hire women at the age of, let's say, in the mid-20s. They're young professionals. They get to their early 30s. We have a different body, and we have different rules and unfairness from the nature to deal with. And a big part of it is that our family planning options are drastically reduced once we hit our 30s, and then even further when you hit 35. And women have to always make this critical choice of do I pick family over career, because there isn't a lot of support provided to women for childcare if they choose a family. Childcare is so expensive. Eventually, the couples have to decide, do we pay for daycare or do I just stay home? And because there's a massive gender pay gap, the man is always making a little bit more than the woman. The man always says, well, I'll go to work, because then you're already making a little less than they look at it that way. If the woman was making more than the man, maybe the man will stay at home. And I've seen that happen in some households as well. It's not always the case. So when you build a company and you have an infrastructure for providing equal opportunity and hiring people based on merit, great. But then you're not giving them an equal opportunity to stay in the company. You're not giving them the equal opportunity to move up in the company. If somebody has to take 5 to 6 years off to have a few kids, when they come back, I understand that they have missed out on the work a little bit, and then they have to catch up. Then they may have to start a little bit further back. But what about the women who have to stay in the workforce, and they have to balance family and kids and everything else, and also keep up with their job requirements? Wouldn't it be great if companies offered childcare support, or even partnered with local daycares within the area to provide some kind of a subsidy or some kind of a discount, so the moms and the parents can drop the kid off right by the office and then go to work, and if there was an emergency, quickly go and take a look at the kid and come back, instead of driving all the way back home for a kid emergency. So I've seen this happen because my mom ran a home daycare for many years, for over 2 decades. We've seen it all. We've seen the parents and the children come in from all incomes and backgrounds, and it's so difficult. It's such a it's an honorable job that my mom did, and it was also very it gave me empathy and sympathy towards the parents who have to drop their children. Many of them were single moms, and they couldn't make it back on time sometimes because of work. And we were always accommodating of their circumstances. And I, wanted to understand, why isn't it that the companies are creating a little bit of a program, partnering with daycares near their offices to provide that support? So there's so much companies can do to keep the people included, right? Not just hiring them, but helping them stay in the company in those jobs. Two, women who haven't had children yet, right? I mean, I was on that frame of mind, like, I don't want to have kids. I wanted to get my career going. I knew what it was like, but I didn't understand what I was giving up until it was a little bit too late. And when I went through the process of doing a lot of IVF cycles and egg retrievals, I was already self-employed. I ended up getting a really good insurance policy, but this all happened because in my early 40s, I learned quite a bit about it. Sorry, my Zoom just kind of showed up out of nowhere. But when you are talking to younger female professionals who are, right there with the male professionals and trying to, get that job, get those hours, get those billable hours, we want to empower them and say, here, your policy, your benefits cover egg freezing. So you can have the freedom to decide when to have kids, and plan it out better. So they're not panicking and losing out on one of the most valuable things that they can have in life. So I've found that many companies, many Fortune 500 companies with massive multi-million-dollar DEI marketing programs not offer, fertility services to their female employees. I know this because I've created a lot of fertility support groups, and there are people from all over the world in these groups, and these women have shared some very shocking information about the terrible insurance policies they have at these companies that will not cover fertility treatments, that will not cover even, the smallest amount. Many states don't have this requirement. Also, Illinois is one of those states where a generation of women fought very hard to make it mandatory that insurance companies cover at least 4 cycles in a year. So there are people in Utah and Colorado that we talked to in our groups that are like, man, I wish I had that. And you would think in some of these states that are so pro-life that they would provide better fertility options for people to have more children. They don't. So women have to travel from different states to get these fertility treatments and get covered. Some people move to Illinois to get jobs here so they can be qualified for insurance because these treatments are expensive. So there's like the lack of support. If somebody wants to have a child in the future or even now, they have such a hard battle to fight. 1 in 6 people have to deal with some sort of a fertility, infertility or some kind of a cycle. 1 in 6, that's not a small number. So this is, this is about procreation. This is about family planning, the future of, our families, our country. I see so much debate going on about abortion and pro-life and pro-choice, but there's a big side to it, which is also providing women the opportunity to have a family, right? So companies can be mindful of that. Instead of putting millions of dollars in DEI propaganda campaigns, they can look at their health insurance policies and the benefits they offer and say, hey, can we add another 10 grand? Can we add another this and that? And it won't be all the, insured. It will just be a certain group of certain subset, right? Women of a certain age who can utilize that. Think about the empowerment of those women who are able to freeze their eggs or get the IVF cycle treatments. Then they have, an ability to have a family. They've got loyalty to your company. You've kept, that percentage of your workforce in your workforce working, and providing benefits to the company. It's a net gain for companies to provide these types of services. Now, I'm going to go a step further because I'm at that age now. I'm also perimenopausal. And this is something that people never talk about. It's so embarrassing. And as soon as a woman hits this age in the previous generations, they're casted off. You can no longer see them. I mean, the idea that, if we talk about Hollywood, if you're over 30, you can't get a job. If you're over 40, and the stigma and the cultural things that people attach to menopause, like you got hot flashes, you can't, got bladder control issues, you can't, you're so emotional and this and that. Give me a break. We're all going through this. Men also suffer from massive testosterone drops and other hormonal drops, right, in their bodies as they age, not to the same extent as women do. And they're not talking about it that way. They keep men in the workforce for as long as possible. But with women, it's just sort of expected that they hide these problems and they deal with them. And if they need some time off, then it's counted against them, against their personal time or their FMLA. It shouldn't be that way. We need to accommodate the people, the humans in our workforce in whatever condition, they're going through. Menopause is part of life. It usually spans about 20 years. There's a premenopause, which is called perimenopause. There's the actual period of menopause, and there's postmenopause. And yes, is it uncomfortable? Is it going to cause a little bit of inconvenience from time to time? Sure. But what doesn't, right? There are all these other factors that come in. And if we can't have the humanity to be kind, to be understanding, to be accommodating to 50% of the population that may be going through this, then it doesn't help me understand what is your company culture, what is your society's culture then at that point, what are your true values then? So I am a big advocate for improved health benefits and accommodation for physical conditions of women. There's no shame about it. We doesn't make it less. It doesn't make us better. It's just it just makes us human. So when companies do this DEI initiatives, they're only talking about hiring people of color or women. That is not the only thing that they have to do. They have to maintain, ensure that women can then stay in the workforce and then continue, to be productive and are empowered to empower your company.
Wow. Wow. You really plus one did on that one. And but there's I think there's, if I can nudge you just a little, there's
Okay.
one area that
Yeah.
I think that, when you talk about, company culture, you're talking about values, you talk about empowerment, you talk about loyalty, you talk about all these things. There's one big thing that needs to happen. We got a pay gap issue, right?
Oh, yes.
Right? I mean, so we have a pay gap issue that needs to be discussed and needs to be handled, right?
Yeah.
Um, and we're seeing that more and more. We're seeing things, float to the surface, but what's happening, right? So I'm going to encourage you to speak about this issue because I know you face it. I know you hear about it, and
Yeah.
that's the pay gap that we're seeing, between men and women.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Um, when when I got into law school, I had this epiphany and I said, it's kind of like a joke, and that I'm going to live like a man. I'm going to work like a man. I'm going to date like a man. I'm going to live like a man. And when I say that, people would kind of take it as a funny thing. People would like, all right, all right. And then there are a lot of women who would say, no, I'm a woman. I'm going to work like a woman and I'm going to be like a woman. And I said, no, my point is that I'm a woman who's going to live like a man. I will not take anything less. I will demand what's mine. I will expect to be treated the same as men. That's my point out of that. I'm not going to seek permission for the things I'm already owed. So when it came to interviews and asking for salaries, I would, and I had a lot of guy friends and they were amazing friends and still are. And, we're our generation would talk about these issues and we talk about these issues very openly, and they would say like, hey, I'm applying for this job, this is the salary that they offered me. And so we knew what the market rate was for a lot of these jobs, and if I was interviewing, I would ask for the same amount. So it was a question of me already deciding, I'm going to live like a man, I'm going to work like a man, I'm going to earn like a man. So why would I allow anybody to offer me anything less? So I would start with my offer with my salary expectations as is what is fair market value, right? For it is the market rate. But most of the times, and I think that because of my attitude and my confidence and what I brought, I was able to get, I believe, if sometimes a little bit higher than maybe my male counterparts because of just what I brought to the table. But that's very rare. Most of the times, I even have a friend right now who is in a very top level position and who's interviewing for another job, and this person she actually has a little bit of self doubt, and she's like, "Do I apply? Do I deserve this?" And I'm like, "Why are you asking these questions?" She's like, "Well, I don't have any female leaders in our company, right? And, I'd be probably the first one, and I want to make sure that I get this job. And do I take a little pay cut to be in this position so I can start something?" And it's heartbreaking to hear that, because she shouldn't have to think like that. She shouldn't have to take a pay cut to get an opportunity that she deserves if she's qualified for it, right?
Mhm.
So it is very persuasive. I think Bright Flag just did a survey for legal ops jobs. The going pay gap is, I think, 17%, and now they've disclosed that the current pay gap in legal ops is 25%. And 75% of those legal ops roles are, done by women. So here you have it. You have a massive pay gap in the legal industry. It's always been there. And now people, again, using DEI propaganda or marketing, will say, we're looking to hire a lot of women, but they're not paying them the same. Right? They
Mm.
want to show this initiative. Oh, look at our head of legal ops. And then, of course, it's some person of color or a woman. They won't say that we hired that. But I want to ask, like, what are you paying this person? Is this person getting paid, the right salary? And it's almost always like they bait qualified talent to come to these shiny titles, and then they don't pay. And then as soon as they see if it's a female applicant, the price drops a little bit. And it's sad because people who are doing this are also women in the HR department. They've been trained that the bottom line matters the most. Oh, it's not about treating anybody unfairly, but if somebody's willing to take less, why shouldn't we pay them less? I've heard these conversations as being in-house counsel for companies, right? It's mind-blowing when you hear that their point is to, protect the shareholders. Who are these shareholders, right? I think that shareholder would also have a problem if they were getting paid less based on gender. I don't think the shareholders care that you're paying women less. Actually, they would have a problem with that, if it meant they made a fraction of a cent in their stocks. So the idea of bottom line being more important than paying people the same amount has been ingrained not just in sales departments, but also in HR departments. So the pay gap does exist. It needs to be fixed. And I think the only way to do it now is to openly call out that it exists. And if possible, the companies that are doing this. A lot of companies recognize that there's a pay gap, and instead of getting caught, they're doing their own surveys and they're trying to mitigate it. And when that happens, it's a big challenge, because then you have to look at it and say, oh my God, we have 48% female and we're paying them 17% less. If we were to increase all of their pay, we'd go bankrupt. Do we go back and pay any kind of back pay for them? So there are a lot of legal and financial issues that pop up as soon as people recognize. So what they basically do is say, don't ask, don't tell. Unless somebody recognizes they're getting paid and asks for more, we won't actually offer that. But that just perpetuates the problem, right?
Right.
Companies have to find a way to figure that out without, okay, maybe not having to pay everybody all at once, but make that, to decrease that gap as much as possible. I know that of all the people, Black women earn the less in the entire, spectrum. Asian women earn more, and I am an Asian woman. I'm an immigrant. And there was somebody, another survey saying that Asian Americans earn more than white Americans, your per capita income, because of culturally, they picked roles like lawyers and doctors and high-tech individuals. So I would like to dictate the Asian women factor out a little bit for that, because now I think that's kind of we're being used to deprive other minority women of getting equal pay. I want to be clear that, I wouldn't want to be included in that statistic. And, we have to stand up for everybody in this category. I'm not just going to fight for Asian women. I fight for all women to get equal pay.
Wow. Yeah. This was a powerful conversation. And we're just scraping, some of the issues.
I also want to add that a lot of people who might listen to this, old school way of saying, this is why we don't hire women. They're coming with so many complaints, so many problems. And that's my thing is it's not up to you to hire us. The society needs all of us. We need men and we need women. We all need to do the job. It's, most of the jobs have, has no bearing if you're a man or a woman, because you've got the same qualification, you've got the education, you've got the personality. It has nothing to do with that. But we cannot live in a society where we've taken out, half of the population from the workforce because they're too much trouble. It's too inconvenient. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep adding more women, and we have to find ways to promote more women to the top, so they actually can understand that this is not a problem. It's just a way of life for me, right? So the way to, again, also improve this is to promote more women, put more women on the other side, again, not just based on their gender, but based on their qualification. And to do that, we got to empower women with education. We got to empower women with knowledge. Nobody's asking for charity. Nobody's asking for a free anything. They want to earn these jobs, these roles, these titles, this pay. Before that, let's get them that qualification. Let's give them that opportunity. If you're a lawyer, or a legal or any profession, and you're a female, and you had to take time off to whatever, raise a family, maybe you had a medical condition, you're definitely now behind a little bit, right? So you won't be able to make as much or do the things that your male counterparts are doing because you had that issue. What we need to do is then give that woman the tools, the education, the opportunity to catch up, right? Cannot keep them down, cannot kick them down and say, you belong there now because you didn't get up with me. That's the problem I see. I'm not saying, give her an opportunity, even though she doesn't have the experience. Give her an opportunity for the experience. We see this all the time when people graduate from college, and a lot of people say, well, you don't have any experience. And they say, well, how am I going to get experience if you're not going to hire me? Right? Same
Right.
thing. How will women continue to progress and fulfill your DEI quotas and statistics if you're not empowering them and educating them and giving them the tools to keep moving up?
Mm. So there's another area too. I mean, we see a lot of different companies, and they're promoting
Yeah.
these different awards. Like you'll see, we have, best in sales, best diversity, right? Best place to work for women. You know,
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me because you know how is this measured?
Yeah.
You know why are not other companies getting these different awards? And then you'll see it from the same particular, I won't call it a vendor, but it's the person who is awarding this company that award.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very interesting. It's very pay to play, in my opinion. It's like, if you're a promoter, you are a magazine owner, and you have a large, if you have a big client that invests a lot in your ads, then somehow they end up winning the award for best this and that, and it's I don't mind the sales and all the other ones, but man, when they talk about like best place to work at, or diversity, or best place for women to work at, it starts to like, and the thing is that women see this and we're all like, oh my god, like nobody buys it, right? Not that these companies may not actually, they might actually have some good policies and programs going on, but when you start seeing these awards roll in, then it just, it's so disingenuous to me. It's like it was done for the award. You're trying to get some kind of a certification or some validation that you're good, and not actually have to do anything to fix the problems, all the problems that, and the things that companies can do that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, this, the question is like, who did the survey? Who else was in the lead? Like, and why is it that it's almost always Fortune 500 companies that get into these like roles? Like, what is your background relationship? How much money did they put in your company last year? Things like
Mhm,
that. So
mhm, mhm.
I just dislike these diversity awards. These are, I recently saw a movie called American Fiction, and I loved that movie. Jeffrey Wright's in it, and it's, I recommend watching it. As the it So as we were watching it, I was equating it to the DEI initiatives and things that are happening. These so-called, people who are allies and advocates and leaders in what you are going to spotlight DEI awareness. Um, I equated it to that because I'm not black, I'm not African American. But it's a funny movie. It's done well, and even the story of that movie being made and how it was made, the creator's acceptance speech for the Oscars is very motivating. I recommend that the audience watch that movie. And I find the DEI culture right now to be like that right now. So
Hmm.
if you are a woman who has a struggle story, and you got this thing and you rose to the ranks and looked how what she made, that they'll like, give that person all the spotlight. That's fine, but how are the rest of the women being treated in your company, right? So what exactly are you promoting here? Just yourself, or are you actually doing something for the improvement of that sector? So definitely watch that movie if you haven't. I think you'll like it. And I want, the audience to watch that movie too. So, don't go by the awards, people. Don't look at what awards they're receiving. Ask the employees, go on Glassdoor, go on other sites, and ask people, how do they really treat their women? Are they silencing sexual harassment claims? Are they providing, maternity leaves? Are they providing any support for training for women so they can advance in their career? Look at all those factors. Were they all considered when this award was given to them?
Wow. Wow. Yeah, and the same thing can be said for even discrimination claims and things of that nature,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so
yeah.
so forth
Anything,
and
right?
so on.
Whether it's,
Yeah.
anything. It's like whether you're being a woman, or age, or physical, disabilities, things like that. Like when people start giving out awards for doing a good thing, I find that very suspect. Like, I grew up in a culture, in Islam and Muslim cultures, there's a saying that when you give with your right hand, your left hand shouldn't know about it. Giving and doing good is not about vanity. It's not about showing off. You just do the right thing. Sure, sometimes you need attention to get a message out if it's an activism thing and if you need the support, but it shouldn't be about feeling good about yourself, and it should definitely not be about patting yourself on the back and getting an award for it. So when I see that, I detest it. But at the same time, I also want to honor people who are pioneers, who are working hard, who are making real change. So not against awards, but I find these large corporate awards that they're the best place to work and best DEI. Then I'm like, is it? Like, let's move on, you know?
Right. Yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us in the conversation. Where can people find you? And more importantly, just so they can hear it again, where should they be the month of June?
Yes. Well, they can find me on the internet. They can find me via email. I'm on LinkedIn as the Contracts Queen. So please find me, connect with me, follow me. If you have any questions on contracts, reach out to me. You have to be at the Crush Contracts Academy on June 21st in Chicago. This is another place where we are educating people on contracts. And empowering them with this knowledge. So if you have anything to do with contracts, if you're interested in doing contracts, I mentor a lot of people in non-in-house and transactional roles. And this is the training I give them. So if you are, in a law firm and you're like, I want to do contracts, I want to go corporate, then you need to come to this event because you're going to meet a lot of individuals who are, not just lawyers, but in procurement, in IT, in mergers and acquisitions, in business, finance, lots of different roles. And then we also have some amazing sponsors, Ironclad, Malbec, Law Group, Coho, and a lot more are joining soon, who are providing this opportunity for you to come and learn about contracts, learn about technology. So it's going to be a great event. And afterwards, we're all going to go eat, drink, party, and have fun in Chicago.
Can't wait to see you there.
Can't wait to see you there either. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.